Welcome again, everyone, for joining to our virtual regional workshop for Advancing 30 by 30 in Climate Smart Lands. We're still expecting quite a few people to arrive, so we will sit tight for another minute or two, but please settle in, and if you are encountering any technical difficulties, please address them to the technical support team through the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar. So welcome everyone to our Advancing 30 by 30 in Climate Smart Lands virtual regional workshop for the Sacramento Valley region. We're seeing that a lot of participants are still arriving, so we're going to wait just a moment or two to have everyone come in, settle in. If you're having technical issues, please address them to our technical support team through the chat function. And we will start in just a minute or two. Okay, welcome again, everybody, to the Advancing 30 by 30 in Climate Smart Lands virtual regional workshops for the Sacramento Valley region. We're still arriving, and I'm going to propose we wait for one more minute before we get started, but then we'll want to be timely. So we will start up in just about a minute. Again, if you're having technical issues, please address them to the technical support team via your chat button at the bottom of your Zoom taskbar. Okay, welcome everyone. I think we're not quite at critical mass, but we want to honor everybody's time and appreciate you joining us today. So welcome to the first of several virtual regional workshops for Advancing 30 by 30 in Climate Smart Lands. Today we are in the Sacramento Valley region, and we're excited to have you join us, and we look forward to collaborating with you today. So my name is Eric Ponsley. I'm from Kearns and West, and I'll be one of your facilitators for today's regional workshop. We want to start with a few housekeeping items before we get into content. So first, with regard to the meeting recording, this meeting will be recorded for future viewing and will be posted on the website at www.californianature.ca.gov. And we're also streaming the workshop live on the CNRA YouTube page. With regard to interpretation assistance, I want to let everyone know that the meeting is being interpreted in Spanish, Vietnamese, Cantonese, and Mandarin. And in order to access the audio channel for any of these languages, please click on the interpretation button, which is highlighted in this slide. It's the globe icon in the Zoom taskbar. When you do so, a menu will appear, and then you'll be able to select the language you require. This message that I just provided will be repeated in all the languages, and then you'll be able to join the audio channel for that language. And then interpretation will begin at the end. So here I want to invite participants who are able to select their language for interpretation to do so now. And I also want to invite our interpreters to present this language, this message in language. So for Spanish, Victor Hernandez, please. Hello, Victor, can you join us?
Thank you so much, Eric. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Le queremos dejar saber que hoy se va a interpretar, va a haber traducción en español para esta reunión. Así es que para acceder lo que es el canal de audio para estos idiomas, por favor, hagan clic en lo que es el botón de traducción, que lo podrán encontrar al fondo de su pantalla. Va a ser un globito o un mundo. Al momento que usted haga clic en ese globito o ese mundo, va a aparecer el idioma que usted quiera seleccionar. En este caso, será el español, y ahora el resto de los traductores interpretarán todo en su idioma. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Victor. And so for our Vietnamese interpreter, Tiffany Tong.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, hold on one second. Somehow. Yes. Xin chào quý vị, chào mừng quý vị đến với hội thảo khu vực trực tuyến về những giải pháp dựa vào thiên nhiên. Xin đưa ra bất kỳ câu hỏi nào về kỹ thuật mà quý vị có vào khung hội thoại. Nếu quý vị cần các dịch vụ phiên dịch, xin ghi rõ tên ngôn ngữ của quý vị vào khung hội thoại và chúng tôi sẽ đáp ứng nhu cầu của quý vị. Quý vị có thể chú ý thấy rằng nhóm chúng tôi sử dụng chức năng giơ tay, raise hands, bằng cách nhấn vào nút phản hồi reaction để tham gia hội thảo bằng tiếng Tây Ban Nha. Và quý vị cũng có thể sử dụng vào cái quả địa cầu để chọn cái ngôn ngữ mà quý vị rất là mong muốn được nghe. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. And for Mandarin, invite Kathy Wu, our interpreter.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Kathy Wu。我们这个30这个是加州的一个最近的一个将来发展，就是土地那个水土这个计划，在2030年之前，加州保留30%的水土的这个计划。那如果需要国语翻译呢，就在这个像地球仪这个样子地方呢，就按一下，然后选择国语。要是粤语就选择粤语。我们这个网上这个会议也会在网上以后会放出来。如果要英文的那个字幕呢，可以按 CC。谢谢 ，Thank you。
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And then finally for Cantonese, our interpreter Wei Tang.
大家好，歡迎嚟到咧係自然為本解決方案虛擬嘅區域工作坊。咁咧，請你利用咧呢個 chat 聊天框咧提出你遇到嘅任何技術問題。如果你需要口譯嘅服務嘅話咧，請喺呢個亦都係 chat 咧聊天框裏邊咧，俾我哋知道你嘅語言，我哋會遷就你嘅需要。你可以單擊呢個 reaction 係反應嘅按鈕啦，運用raise hand 舉手嘅功能咧嚟通知我哋團隊。如果你係需要係聽呢個係廣東話嘅翻譯嘅話咧，咁咧請你係單擊你個熒幕底部嘅一個係地球嘅圖標上邊亦都寫住係 interpretation 係口譯呢個字樣嘅。咁有嗰度咧，你就去選擇你嘅語言。咁你選擇呢個 Cantonese 咧，就可以聽到我咧係呢個係廣東話嘅即時傳譯㗎啦。如果你喺今日嘅網絡會議過程遇到咧係同語言相關嘅疑難咧，亦都係請你用聊天框咧 chat 咧通知呢個係技術支援嘅。亦都可以打電話，有個電話係76069076664咧。聯絡我哋咁咧，請你留低你個信息咧，究竟係遇到咩問題，我哋會幫你噶啦。多謝晒。如果想通過你嘅瀏覽器或者流動裝置參與一陣間 其實我哋就會講咧，呢個 poll 呢個係意見調查嘅咧，一陣間我哋會再講。咁多謝大家。
Thank you, Wei, and
you're
thank you
welcome.
to all of our interpreters, and again invite participants requesting or needing interpretation to please click the interpretation button, the globe icon in your Zoom taskbar. So a couple more logistics before we move on. First, this workshop has closed captioning. If you'd like to use this option, you can click the closed caption icon, which is in the Zoom taskbar as well, and you can either select subtitles to view subtitles on the screen or live transcript to see the full transcript in the side panel. Okay, so a couple slides on how to participate. As you may have noticed, participants will generally be muted during the workshop, and it will be participating primarily via polling, which we'll explain in a little while. If you need technical assistance at any time, please contact our technical support team by using the chat button on the Zoom taskbar. We'll also be sharing relevant links through the chat feature throughout the workshop, so please keep an eye on that. Also, participants can also use the raise hand function to signal the need for technical assistance, and here you click on the reactions button on your Zoom taskbar and then select raise your hand. If you're on phone and want to raise your hand, you dial *9. That's *9. Okay, a couple more slides. First, we want to propose some tips to have a productive workshop. And we have, as you can tell, a large number of members of the public participating today, both virtually via the webinar and also by phone. And we want to make this workshop as productive as possible for everyone. So as we move through the workshop, we invite you all to please follow these guidelines. First, invite you to be respectful, and this is both to each other, but also to the workshop agenda and objectives. Second, threatening, profane, or other inappropriate language will not be permitted in the meeting. And then finally, disruptive participants will be removed as needed from the workshop. So we invite your cooperation in making this a productive meeting and a good use of time for everyone here. So moving on to welcome and workshops and welcome and introductions. Facilitating today's workshop with me are Cece Vu and Lisa Marie Ali from Kearns and West. Joining us from the California Natural Resources Agency are Jennifer Norris, who's the Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat, Amanda Hansen, who's the Deputy Secretary for Climate Change, and then also Mark Gold, who's the Deputy Secretary for Oceans and Coastal Policy for our CNRA, and he's also the Executive Director for the Ocean Protection Council. So to recap our workshop objectives, these 9 meetings are designed to ensure that the state will hear from a broad cross-section of stakeholders with vital interests in how California achieves our goals of conserving 30% of state lands and coastal waters by 2030 and accelerating nature-based climate solutions. And so the specific objectives we've laid out for these workshops are as follows. One is to provide an overview of the nature-based solutions and relevant action items in Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-82-20. Secondly, to introduce the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy and the pathways to 30 by 30. And finally, we're most interested to hear from you and to gain regional perspectives and ideas. So in terms of the agenda and flow of the workshop itself, we'll spend about 30 minutes providing you with an update, and then the next 90 minutes or so for the rest of the meeting, conducting a suite of polling activities aimed to gather insights, experiences, and ideas from the public. After brief presentations by Secretary Wade Crowfoot, Jennifer Norris, and Amanda Hansen of the California Natural Resources Agency, we will kick off the public engagement portion of the meeting with a poll to learn about you and your priorities. And at that point, we'll break into 3 smaller groups to engage in interactive polling, asking a range of questions on a variety of topics. And these breakout sessions will go quickly, so we ask you to please respond to the polling questions as concisely as possible so that everybody gets a chance to contribute. We want to need your experiences and ideas as we work together to create a substantive long-term strategy or strategies that the state will implement to achieve the goal. So now I would like to turn it over to Jennifer Dorris of the California Natural Resources Agency to share a tribal acknowledgement. Jen?
Thank you, Eric, and good afternoon. I am Jennifer Norris, Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat. I would like to start by acknowledging the importance of tribal communities in this process. Our tribal partners are integral to achieving the goals set forth in the governor's executive order. We know that by working together, we can further safeguard the environment, preserve tribal cultural practices, strengthen relationships between the state and tribal nations, and more. The Resources Agency is currently engaging tribes through government-to-government consultations. In addition, in coming months, we will be holding tribal listening sessions to engage tribes, solicit tribal input, and explore opportunities to collaborate. We look forward to working with our tribal partners and encourage those who would like to connect with us on tribal perspectives to visit our website to see a schedule of the listening sessions. So please check us out at www.resources.ca.gov. We also want to acknowledge any elected officials that joined us today. Thank you for your participation. Public engagement is critically important to the state, even as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that virtual meetings are not the ideal way to have a conversation, but we didn't want to delay this important work on 30 by 30 and climate smart lands. So while this isn't how we envisioned, we do hope these meetings can be productive and a positive process for everyone involved. Collaboration is essential to achieving the goals outlined in the executive order. So in that spirit, I want to pause and acknowledge today's news and the national conversation that strengthens our resolve to engage all voices and to advance equity in our work. So as conditions improve with COVID, we look forward to scheduling in-person opportunities to get your insights and perspectives and have a real dialogue. But I still think today's gonna be pretty great. We'll begin today with opening remarks from Wade Crowfoot, Secretary of the California Natural Resources Agency, the agency that protects and manages California's natural resources, including our forests, rivers and waterways, coasts and ocean, fish and wildlife, water and energy resources. Thank you.
Okay, we're having some issues with Wade's video. Tech team, do we want to try it again?
I'm Wade Crowfoot, our California.
That sounded better.
Natural Resources Secretary. Welcome and thank you for joining one of 9 virtual regional workshops to advance nature-based solutions across our state. Last fall, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that elevated the role of nature in both combating climate change, maintaining and protecting our biological diversity, and achieving more equitable access to our outdoors. In our agency, the Natural Resources Agency, we're really excited about the governor's leadership that's of course matched by our legislature on expanding environmental conservation across our state to achieve these multiple objectives. We live in a remarkable state, known around the world for our natural diversity of plants and animals, topographies, ecosystems, and our cultural diversity, where we are succeeding and thriving across all conceivable differences within our human species. The work that you'll be involved in and the input you provide will ensure that looking forward in coming years and decades, we craft smart, ambitious, but achievable strategies to expand environmental conservation and utilize nature in the fight against climate change. In that executive order that Governor Newsom issued last fall, he called for conserving 30% of our state's land and coastal waters by 2030, which we call the 30 by 30 target. He also called for the development of a climate-smart land strategy so we can understand how we better manage both our natural and working lands to both remove carbon from the atmosphere and protect people and nature from the impacts of climate change. The best ideas we have and the most effective actions will achieve multiple benefits. At the same time, combating climate change, preserving biodiversity, and expanding recreational and outdoor access for all Californians. We know there are no one-size-fits-all solutions from Sacramento for this work, and our regions are so different in both the challenges they face and the opportunities they offer, that these regional workshops are really critical to help us understand what is the situation in your part of California. What are critical priorities in this area that we need to address? What are challenges you face to environmental conservation and climate action and equitable access? And importantly, what are opportunities for our state agency and more importantly, our state government to help you seize these opportunities in your region to expand equitable, thoughtful, sustainable, balanced environmental conservation? So we're really excited with your participation and look forward to these regional workshops figuring in and informing both a strategy for the achievement of the 30 by 30 target and our climate smart land strategy coming up in recent months. Really appreciate all that you do in your own lives on these important topics, and very excited to hear from you today and in coming weeks and months. Thank you.
And now Amanda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Hansen, and I'm going to provide some background on why Governor Newsom issued an executive order on nature-based solutions, what nature-based solutions are and why they matter. I'm going to tee up the focus of our workshop today, and then I'm going to outline what the natural and working lands climate smart strategy is and outline some questions about how it might best support your priorities. Climate change and biodiversity loss are among the top 5 threats humanity will face in the next 10 years. As we know all too well, California is not immune to these crises. Last year alone, historic wildfires burned over 4 million acres in California. Lives were lost, homes and businesses were destroyed, public health suffered from hazardous air quality, and nature that we treasure is gone. These fires took place in the middle of a deadly pandemic and heat wave, and on the heels of the most extreme drought in the state's history. California is considered one of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots because of its high concentration of unique species that are also experiencing unprecedented threats, including climate change. The governor issued the Nature-Based Solutions Executive Order in direct response to these threats. And today's workshop is focused on 2 particular deliverables called for in the executive order to accelerate nature-based solutions: our Pathways to 30 by 30 document and the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy. I'm going to quickly touch now on what nature-based solutions are and why they are important. When we talk about nature-based solutions, we are talking about solutions that work with and enhance nature to help address societal challenges. And they are important because they provide so many benefits, some of which we depend on for our very human well-being. They can protect our food and water security, contribute to our economy, expand equitable access to nature and protect vulnerable communities, reduce the impacts of pollution, create energy savings, and much more. This slide shows a few examples of nature-based solutions that address climate change and protect biodiversity. The circular image you see is an example of community greening, which can cool communities facing extreme heat, reduce flood risk, capture stormwater runoff, enhance biodiversity, and increase quality of life. The top right image shows wetlands and riparian areas which, when restored and functioning, sequester carbon, reduce flood risk, filter pollution, and protect habitat. The middle right image is an example of a nature-based solution in our agricultural community. This hedgerow improves biodiversity, supports pollinators, and sequesters carbon while also supporting our food supply. And the lower right image speaks to the potential for nature-based solutions in our forests and watersheds, which deliver many benefits to Californians. Healthy forests reduce the threat of catastrophic wildfire and serve as a carbon sink. They also capture and clean our water supply, improve air quality, cool communities, provide habitat for wildlife, and support local economies. Now, I'd like to just outline at a top level the goals of the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy and explore how it might support your regional priorities. Natural and working lands is the term we use in California to describe the nature-based solutions sector and consists of the iconic landscapes we know and love, our forests, coasts, wetlands, farms, ranches, community green space, grasslands, deserts, and more. These lands cover 90% of the state's 104 million acres. And as outlined earlier, they present a real opportunity to support our goals of achieving carbon neutrality and building climate resilience in the face of so many impacts. Trees, plants, grasses, and soils naturally suck up and absorb and store greenhouse gases that would otherwise go into the atmosphere. They can also protect people and nature from the impacts of climate change, soaking up floodwaters, reducing the risk of wildfire, cooling communities. The Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy is intended to serve as California's long-term approach for how our lands can contribute to our climate change goals. This is a missing piece of the puzzle in California's climate portfolio. So we're really excited to align relevant existing state efforts under one cohesive strategy and identify land management efforts that will help us protect vulnerable communities, achieve carbon neutrality, improve public health and safety, and expand economic opportunity. So what does this mean for the region? We're here to understand how this strategy might support your regional priorities. For example, we know that the Sacramento Valley region will face increased temperatures and more frequent and intense heat waves. Are you envisioning nature-based solutions playing a role to address this threat, such as green roofs, community tree canopy, and vertical gardens? Storms are likely to become more intense and cause flooding in this region. Are there people or places particularly vulnerable to flooding and or subsidence where nature-based solutions can reduce risk, such as wetland restoration or stormwater parks? This region is also projected to experience increased wildfires. Are there land management strategies you want to see more of to reduce these risks, such as increased prescribed burns or increased conservation of working forests? What actions can the state strategy prioritize to support this region's agricultural community as they adapt land management in the face of these threats? Are there careers in the natural and working land sector you'd like to elevate in this region, such as arborists, community foresters, carbon farmers? Today, we want to learn which nature-based climate solutions are important to you and how our statewide strategy can support your environmental, economic, and equity priorities. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Jennifer Norris. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Again, I'm Jennifer Norris, and I'm running point on our 30 by 30 initiative. As you have heard, our goal is to conserve 30% of our lands and coastal waters by 2030. And we want to do so in a manner that protects biodiversity, combats climate change, increases access to nature, and at the same time safeguards our economic sustainability and food supply. We're being purposeful in our approach. We want to conserve places that effectively protect the biological diversity of California. our unique plants and animals. We want to conserve lands and waters that meaningfully protect us from the effect of climate change in the ways that Amanda outlined. And we want to conserve in a way that provides recreational opportunities and access to nature, because we want all of California to be able to enjoy nature and all of its benefits. So what kinds of places are we talking about? Here are some examples from this region. The Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge, where people hunt, hike, and birdwatch, and which is home to over 300 species of birds. If you haven't been to see snow geese fly off on a winter evening, you should put that on your list. The American River Parkway, a regional open space that connects people to the river and provides some amazing habitat for biodiversity, oak trees and herons, songbirds and salmon. It also provides green infrastructure, protecting us from flooding and helping to clean our water supply. And finally, this mitigation property in eastern Solano County. It's protected through a conservation easement and managed with grazing. It provides habitat for rare and beautiful vernal pool plants and special status species like the California tiger salamander and Swainson's hawk. Achieving 30 by 30 will rely on the accumulation of places like this across the state. Good conservation can happen on every conceivable land type and through lots of different strategies. And as the secretary said, one size does not fit all. At the end of the day, conservation happens locally, so we need to work together. By February 2022, we will deliver our Pathways to 30 by 30 document, which will identify opportunities and strategies to achieve 30 by 30. Today, we want to hear from you about your region and where you'd like to see conservation happen here. We're interested to know how you think we should go about it. Which strategies to conserve lands and waters are most effective in this region? Which strategies are more challenging and why? Your insights today will be used to develop our document and to help us define conservation for the state. I'll note that the executive order called for the establishment of a biodiversity collaborative in recognition of the fact that partners across the state have experience and expertise that we can learn from. This conversation is the beginning of what we hope is an ongoing partnership. 30 by 30 isn't a new mandate, and it won't be accomplished from the top down. Our ultimate goal is for 30 by 30 to be what is called an open source movement, for people across the state from a diverse array of sectors to see themselves as owners of the initiative and to commit to achieving 30 by 30 with us. Thank you again for being here. I really look forward to hearing your ideas. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Mark Gold.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, I'm Mark Gold, Executive Director of the Ocean Protection Council and Deputy Secretary for Ocean and Coastal Policy with the California Natural Resources Agency. Glad to be here today as we focus on some of the most pressing issues facing California's work to protect our natural habitats, combat climate change, and ensure biodiversity in this great state. For those of you who are not familiar with the Ocean Protection Council, we have a mission to ensure that California maintains healthy, resilient, and productive ocean and coastal ecosystems. OPC works across various state agencies to coordinate activities related to ocean protection, and we also establish policies that facilitate the collection and sharing of scientific data, as well as identify policy areas that need to be addressed at the state and federal levels. State waters run from the tide lines to 3 miles out, and 16% of coastal waters are part of the statewide marine protected area network. 9% of state coastal marine waters are protected through no-take reserves, and 7% are limited commercial and/or recreational take MPAs. The MPA network is approaching a decadal review of this program by the end of 2022, and we're not looking at MPA expansion as part of this 30 by 30 path for the ocean. There are 124 MPAs in the network and will be during this time. Our coastal regions and oceans are important ecosystems that are not only places where species thrive, but also serve as main attractions for California residents and visitors who want to enjoy the sand, water, and features of our coastline. These areas are also integral to our economy with aquaculture, energy generation, and the network of ports up and down the state that are essential to the movement of goods in and out of California and the entire nation. Climate change threatens the coast and ocean with rising sea level rise and ocean acidification, while other coastal resources suffer from the impacts of water pollution, harmful algae blooms, and habitat loss. We must take steps now to prevent further erosion of the coast and loss of rocky intertidal habitats, wetlands, and beaches, also the loss of kelp forests and the loss of marine life. In order to develop the path to 30 by 30 for coastal waters, stakeholder engagement will be critical to better define what conservation means for California's coastal zone and waters. California has 34 areas of special biological significance identified, 3 national estuary programs, 3 national estuarine reserve research reserves, and 4 national marine sanctuaries that are critical for conservation. This effort will enable California to develop practical and scientifically based strategies that will get us to 30 by 30 for our coastal regions and ocean waters. Thanks, and now back to Jen.
Thanks, Mark. So quick update on CA Nature. If you watched our January webinar, you know that we have been working with Esri on a geospatial information system called CA Nature. This system is being designed to be a publicly accessible suite of interactive mapping and visualization tools. CA Nature will bring together maps of biodiversity, climate change, and access so we can view and analyze different features of the landscape all in one place. It will allow us to identify places across California where we have the opportunity to achieve our biodiversity, climate, and access goals. We are currently developing CA Nature using authoritative statewide data that we currently use or have access to. But of course, this is only the first version. We expect to expand this system over time, integrating new data that reflect changes in our understanding and knowledge. Some of you have been asking how you can provide data for use in CA Nature. I'm happy to tell you there is now a submission form on our website where you can input information about data that you want us to consider for future versions. We're most interested in statewide information that meets our program objectives and has strong scientific data and documentation standards. Please stay tuned for future updates on CA Nature. And now I'll turn it over to Lisa Marie Alley.
Thanks, Jen. As you've heard from Amanda, Jen, and Mark, the state's been busy since Governor Newsom issued the executive order. We're going to take a moment to zoom out and see where we've been and where we're going next. Governor Newsom issued the executive order in October, and its partner agencies, along with California Natural Resources, have been making progress toward developing these and other strategies to support the goal. In January of this year, a kickoff webinar was hosted by the state that drew in over 800 interested parties. The state also began formal consultation with California Native American tribes and continues to hold tribal listening sessions then and in the coming months to share information, solicit input, and collaborate. Stakeholder engagement has also been ongoing in the beginning of the year and will continue throughout this entire process. Just last week, californianature.ca.gov was launched. It serves as a portal for visitors to learn and engage in the development of the Pathways to 30 by 30 and the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy. Additionally, last week, CNRA released a public input questionnaire in which we're asking you to provide additional information, share your experiences, and your ideas. We want to hear from as many Californians as possible. This questionnaire will be open until May 14th, so please check it out and we'll talk about it in a little bit. And today, we're holding the first of 9 regional workshops to gain input, perspectives, and hear ideas. These virtual webinars are open to all interested parties, no matter where you reside, and you're welcome to attend more than one. All of the workshop materials and videos will be posted on the website in the coming days. Next up, the state will be hosting a series of topical advisory panels to address key questions to support the development of these 2 strategies. Each advisory panel will produce a summary document that gives context to their topic area, offer technical or other insights, and provide key recommendations. Topics will include issues related to climate change, biodiversity, defining conservation, and equitable approaches to this work. panel will also present their relevant deliberations and recommendations in virtual convenings, concluding with time for public input and conversation. Next up, the state will issue the draft Climate Smart Land Strategy for public review and comment. Then the state will take those comments and inputs and finalize the document to be delivered in the fall of this year. Additionally, in the fall, we will be holding another series of virtual workshops to update the public on the progress being made and invite more participation. And in the fall, we'll also be releasing the draft Pathways to 30 by 30 document to solicit input and review by the public. And then finally, that document will be released and delivered in early 2022. As it was mentioned earlier, ongoing public involvement and engagement remains critical to the state, even during the time that we're navigating through this COVID-19 pandemic. Please continue to check out the website, californianature.ca.gov, for additional ways to engage. As I mentioned, just last week, the state launched californianature.ca.gov. At this website, you can find all the relevant information about these two strategies, including the input form, videos, press releases, and ways to contact us. As I mentioned on the website, you can find the public input questionnaire. It's an online tool where you can provide information and give us additional details about what's important to you and your regional perspectives. And finally, I would like to say that there are many ways that you can reach the state. We have established an email address, californianature@resources.ca.gov. You can always send in something through the postal mail, and you can leave a voicemail on a number that we have established. Thank you, and now I will toss it over to Cece Vu to explore the region and talk about the public input portion of today's workshop.
Thank you, Lisa Marie. Now we are moving into the portion of today's workshop that focuses in on the perspective in the Sacramento region, as Lisa Marie mentioned, and provide an opportunity for the public to participate in this process. We have an exercise for you. Today's regional workshop in the Sacramento Valley region, for our purposes, consists of Sacramento, Yolo, Sutter, Yuba, Colusa, Glen, Butte, Tehama, Shasta, the eastern half of Solano, and the western part of Placer counties. Over 2.9 million people call the Sacramento Valley region their home. Recreational and natural lands range from sloping Sierra foothills to the Sacramento and American rivers, to a booming agritourism industry that invites visitors into the flatlands. This region's agricultural industry produces almonds, walnuts, rice, and many more staple crops that feed many communities across the nation and generate $5 billion per year. The 11 counties in Sacramento Valley region support more than 1.2 million jobs, including 26,500 farming jobs. As you probably know, the Sacramento Valley region is rich in both natural and agricultural lands. The region's land covers predominantly forests and cropland, accounting for about 39% and 21% respectively. However, there is also significant land area representing grassland, about 17%, and shrub, 10%. Settlements account for 5%, as do wetlands. Of the region, water covers just under 2% of the area. This is a dynamic region that contributes greatly to the entire state. We want to provide crops that feeds many communities across the nation and generate $5 billion per year. The 11 counties in Sacramento Valley region support more than, I have the wrong. Since we are in a virtual setting, Sorry about that. Are we going into the polling right now? Okay, since we are in a virtual setting, we will be conducting an online polling activity to capture your responses on screen so that others can collectively view and experience it. The polling tool will also save your written responses, which will help inform the deliverables for the priorities we described. You can participate in 3 ways: via your computer by opening a browser and going to pollev.com/KWPOLL1, on your smartphone by opening a browser and going to pollev.com/KWPOLL1, or by sending a text message to KWPOLL1 from your phone to the number 22333. I'll repeat that. If you'd like to respond to the polls using text messaging, please text KWPOLL1 to 22333. Please use your preferred option to respond to 3 questions, which I will pose. Let's begin now. Question 1. Oh, it looks like you all have started already. Where are you located? And if you need to insert 2 or more words, you can put underscore between each word. So looks like we have Sacramento, Tehama Butte. This is so it looks like predominantly we participants here today are from Sacramento, which makes sense, and responses are coming in. We even have someone from Truckee, Roseville, San Francisco, Oakland, Modesto, so you can all see who is here in the room with us today, representing the Sacramento Valley region. And it looks like we're still getting some responses in. So let's give a few minutes so that we can all see. Okay. Arcadia, Yuba. Looks like we even have someone from Los Angeles. Okay. I think we have most everyone represented. We have about 200 participants here today. So should we move on to the next question? In this next question, we'd like to ask what sector you represent. Immediately, we have government, we have community-based organizations in the room, business, general public. We have folks from academia, so mostly government today, and then our NGOs and community-based organizations. Oh, we have, actually, we have tribal community representation as well. Great. I think it's pretty evenly divided between our government and community-based organizations. Next question we have for you is, when you think about nature or special places in your region, what specific places come to mind? And again, if you have 2 words, please put underscore in between the words, multiple words, underscore between each word so we can capture it fully. Sacramento River. There's some grasslands in there, mountains, farms, just rich in different places. Pacific Flyway, vernal pools. Looks like Sacramento River is still one big place that comes to mind for folks. And I'm not sure why the word cloud is just getting smaller, because it's just a lot of us are responding. American pools, wetlands. Great. Open space, state conservancy, walking trails, riparian habitat, there's what I was looking for, delta. Great, so we have a really good idea of what you all have in mind when you think of the Sacramento Valley region. And it looks like the Sacramento River, the big body of water is it. So I think we're going to end the polling exercise here. And then we're going to move into the next segment where we will do breakout groups. And thank you all for your participation in this segment here. It was really fun to see your responses. And this activity gives you some flavor of how we will be requesting your feedback in this next part of the meeting to further help inform the development of the natural lands, climate smart strategy, and 30 by 30 pathways. And as we have such a large number of participants, we will now transition into breakout rooms so that your feedback can most effectively be given and captured. In the breakout session, we will be asking you all to provide ideas in 3 key areas for your region. 1, interest in current efforts, challenges, opportunities. I'm going to spend a few minutes now just to explain the breakout logistics, so please bear with me for just a bit longer. We ask that phone-only participants remain in this main room so we can accommodate you. We are asking participants who requested interpretation upon registration to remain in this main room. Other webinar participants will be randomly assigned to either breakout room 1 or breakout room 2. I just want to cover some details on the questions and responses before we break out. We will capture webinar participants' feedback in the breakout room similarly to how we've done so in this plenary session. There are a number of questions we would like to ask to get through, so please share brief responses. You'll be able to see others' responses and reflect on them. Our team will synthesize common themes from your responses and incorporate them into a meeting summary, which will be made publicly available. We will treat all responses equally. If you need more time to think through your responses, please remember that you can always submit them via the public input questionnaire that we've been talking about on the state's website, californianature.ca.gov. Now, we will begin the process of assigning you to breakout groups. Please follow the message prompt on your screen. And again, a reminder, phone-only participants and participants needing language interpretation, please remain in this room and deny any prompt you may receive. And again, we greatly appreciate your continued patience in these next moments as we transition into breakout groups. A facilitator will meet you in your breakout room, but they may be arriving after you. So please hang tight. Here we go for the ride. Okay, I think we're all here. Great. So just making sure everyone is in. Okay. Thank you again for your patience as we transition into our respective breakout groups for this interactive portion of the meeting. You are in this accommodations room where we are welcoming phone-only and non-English speaking participants. We have a facilitator still in here.
Looks like we just got kicked out of room 2 and back in the main room.
Yeah, weird. Oh,
right, we're joining room 2 again.
Bye-bye.
We want this to be sort of a roller coaster for you all. Okay. So we're back in the accommodations room with phone-only participants and those who need interpretation. If you joined late, please look at the interpretation instructions in the chat. Okay, as a reminder, we are still recording this session and streaming live on YouTube for others to be able to view at a later time. And our interpretation services are still available. If you joined late, please look for interpretation instructions again in the chat. My name is Cece Vu, and I'm your facilitator during this session. As we are in a virtual environment using different technologies in this room, please bear with me as I spend a bit of time up front to provide you with the proper instructions for participation. I will talk for a bit, so I hope you can follow along. And we have phone-only participants, so I just want to make sure, so I'll be repeating numbers again and again. At any time during this session, you encounter technical issues, please call or text, and I hope you can note this down here. I'm going to slowly state the number. 760 area code 690-7664. So if you encounter technical issues, please dial or text 760-690-7664. We recognize that you are calling in by phone because you don't have an option to participate by computer. So we've designated this room to collect your ideas and thoughts by text and verbally. If we have any in-language participants with phone-only access, please raise your hand and speak your feedback in the language that you have in your language, and we will have it translated by our interpreters in the chat. So there's a little complexity there if you joined both needing phone access and interpretation. That said, we encourage you to provide text responses if you are reasonably able to do so without any technical issues or financial burdens. Text responses allow us to more accurately capture your input. So please text if at all possible. And here are the instructions for texting. So please note this if you're on the phone and you don't have computer access. Please text in responses to polling questions by texting KWPOLL2. KWPOLL2 to this number, 22333. 22333. Should you not be able to text in your responses, the following are your instructions to participate verbally and to ask clarifying questions. And we have a number of phone participants here today, so I'm going to really read these instructions. So raise hand by dialing *9. I will unmute you in the order hands are raised and call out the last 4 digits of your phone number. Participants will be given the option to unmute by dialing *6 and providing a brief response. We will not be addressing any substantive questions today. We can address quick clarifying questions, but mainly we will be taking feedback. I will place you back on mute after you are finished speaking your response. So due to a large, we have a few, so we don't have such a large phone participation today, so we may be able to get to all of you and your feedback. So I will take a number of verbal responses per question, giving participants as much opportunity as possible to speak, given our time constraints. This means we might have to limit you to 1 brief response so that others can have the opportunity. If you do not have a chance to share your verbal response or text response today, please consider noting your responses and recording them in the public input questionnaire available on the website, californianature.ca.gov. You may also submit additional comment by email at californianature@resources.ca.gov. That's California Nature, one word, @resources.ca.gov. We also have a postal address, which you can obtain via email. And we also have a voicemail 1-800 number, 1-800-417-0668. We appreciate your understanding as we strive to provide the most equitable ways for you to participate and provide feedback today to the state for these important initiatives, given our virtual challenges. So right now I'm going to start to jump into our actual polling. Apologize for that monologue. The questions I will be asking are organized in 3 main regional themes. Again, interests and current efforts, challenges, and opportunities. We'll be inviting your feedback and ideas in response to about 8 questions in total. Please take your time in thinking through responses to the question before you raise your hand. And then I will just try to provide a high-level synthesis of some of the responses that we have received. And please recall that you may also provide more in-depth responses in the questionnaire, but today we're taking very brief responses. So the first topic, regional interests and current efforts. There are 5 questions to cover here. And the first question I'm going to ask is, thinking about biodiversity in the Sacramento Valley region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? I'm going to repeat that for our phone callers. Thinking about biodiversity in this region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? So as you're thinking about your responses, again, you are able to text in your responses. And then you can also raise your hand at this point and we can call on you to provide a verbal response. And I'm going to repeat the question once again. Thinking about biodiversity in this region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? So just to clarify, you all may be asking about biodiversity and expanding on that. Biodiversity is the shortened form of two words, biological and diversity. And it refers to all variety of life that can be found on Earth, including plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms, as well as to the natural communities that they form and habitats where they live. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so you may all be thinking. And it looks like for our in-language participants, we're not able to see the screen right now or participate by browser. So any of our phone participants would like to answer this question? And some of you may be texting in responses, but apologies, our technology is not working right now. So just to give you a little bit more of a framing text, you know, we're talking about how we're biological and diversity, it refers to the variety of life that can be found on Earth, including plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms. Oh, here we go. We have a response. The river. Definitely a Sacramento icon. Does anybody want to provide a verbal response here? This is your opportunity. Okay. So I think we've spent enough time on this question. Again, if you're still thinking through, you can always provide a response through the questionnaire and the ways that I mentioned earlier, by email or by phone. And we're going to jump into the next question. Thinking about this region, what nature-based climate solutions are important to you? Native plants and native food plants. Thank you. Thinking about this region, what nature-based climate solutions are important to you? We have one response texted in, native plants and native food plants. Does anybody want to provide a verbal response to this question? Thinking about the region, what nature-based climate solutions are important to you? Restoration of landscapes using native California species is another response that we just received. It's a great one. Restoration of landscapes using native California species. Okay. So earlier, when Amanda spoke about nature-based climate solutions, She gave some other examples in her remarks, including green roofs, community tree canopies, vertical gardens, wetlands restoration, stormwater parks, urban or agricultural water conservation, prescribed burns, or increased conservation of working forests. So those are some other examples of nature-based climate solutions that may be valued. Okay, looks like we've gotten 2 text messages response. Anybody? Habitat conservation is another text response. Environmental ED.
I think that's environmental education.
Education, yes. Environmental education, nature-based climate solutions that are important. Okay. Anyone on the phone would like to speak and offer a response? A verbal response? Okay. All right, let's, I think we spent, oh, here we go. Research for carbon sequestration. Okay. So for those on the phone, we have another one, another response come in, research for carbon sequestration. So we have environmental education, habitat conservation, restoration of landscapes using California species. Some great responses. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can move on to our next question. I don't see any hands raised, and I think our text responses are slowing down. So next question is, thinking about recreation and access in this region, what types of places are important to you? So thinking about recreation and access in this region, what types of places are important to you? And apologies, it's loading again, the tool. So just for some context here, from the regional perspective, recreational and natural lands range from the sloping Sierra foothills to Sacramento, the American rivers, which is a very popular response, to agritourism industry that invites visitors into the flatlands. And this region's land cover is predominantly forests, cropland. While I'm doing this, I'm hoping we could fix the tool so that we can get some responses. We also have some land area representing grassland and shrub. Here we go. Great. Floodplain reconnection. These are some text responses that we're receiving. Local parks, nature reserves, another parks, river parkways, river access and public lands in foothills to mountains, fishing access, example of the full variety of habitats. Okay. Some great responses. Around the river, there's fishing access as well. So does anybody on the phone want to offer a verbal response? Sounds like you all have some access to texting, so that's great. Okay. I think we're good to move on to the next question. What is working in this region to conserve lands and/or coastal waters, implement nature-based solutions to climate change, or increase equitable access to nature and its benefits? So we're asking you about what is working in this region to conserve lands and coastal waters with respect to the three priorities, the state's priorities around nature-based solutions to climate change, increase equitable access to nature and its benefits. So while we're, oh, here we go. Nature preserves, public access, bike trails, river access. Parkway, sidewalks. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, agroecological farming, sustainable soil management, and organic sustainable food systems that reduce pollution and sequester carbon. Very thoughtful response there. Tree canopies in hot areas. Yes. Bioswales. Okay. Natural community conservation plan and regional habitat conservation plans. So response around planning. Okay. Great responses. Thank you. And does anybody, before we move on, does anybody want to offer a verbal response? Please star 9 if you'd like to. Okay. I think we can move on to the next question now. This is our 5th question. The state of California is committed to conserving 30% of its lands and coastal waters by 2030. What does conservation mean to you in that context? So while, here, great. Treatment wetlands. Conservation means treatment wetlands within the context of 30 by 30. Reestablishing wetlands. Protection and restoration of all lands. So we have 2 responses around wetlands, all lands, not building roads or buildings on them, restoration to a climate resilient ecosystem or working land. Limited development in sensitive areas. Cache Creek Resources Management Program. Water conservation and water recycling increase. So it looks like we have some responses around wetlands, sensitive areas, Cache Creek being one specific area, water conservation, recycling, Here's one about protecting endemic species. Okay. Those are great responses. Thank you for rolling them in. Does anybody want to offer a verbal response to this question? Okay. Defining conservation is a fundamental cornerstone to this entire process. It means many things to many people, but we must find common agreement. Thank you for that. Yeah, conservation means many things to many people, but we want to find that common agreement. Okay. Does anybody want to offer a verbal response to this question? Oh, here we go. Protecting land from urban or industrial development. Okay. Definitely have heard that one. The full variety of protected lands and water users that are managed for biodiversity. So a full variety of protected lands and water users that are managed for biodiversity. Okay. Providing continued access to hunting and fishing. Right? Great. I think we could close out if no one has any more text responses, and if we don't have anyone wishing to provide a verbal response, we can move on to our next session, our next topic on regional challenges. Okay, let's jump in. Question 6. Please describe the greatest challenges to conserving lands and/or coastal waters, implementing nature-based solutions to climate change, or increasing equitable access to nature and its benefits. Describe the greatest challenges to conserving lands and/or coastal waters, to implement nature-based solutions to climate change, or increasing equitable access to nature and its benefits. So before we asked about ideas on efforts, and now we would like to ask a question about challenges. And while we're waiting for the tool to load, if you have a verbal response you'd like to share, we can take those. Okay. So in another sense, we're looking to help us identify key barriers that the state needs to overcome with respect to conserving lands for the priorities. This is very suspenseful to wait for the text responses to come through. And I encourage you to raise your hand if you have verbal responses while we wait for the tool. Again, *9 to raise your hand, and I can unmute you and you can have an opportunity to speak while we troubleshoot the tool here. Okay. Maybe what we can do is, while this tool loads, we can also ask the next question, and you all could start to think about it, and then we can always see your responses once the tool is up and running. Okay. Oh, great. So we're going to check in with you on opportunities in this segment. And we have a couple of questions remaining. The first one around opportunities is, what does long-term success? Are we able to pull up the, okay, I'm just gonna call out the question. Okay. What does long-term success look like for nature-based climate solutions in this region? What does long-term success look like for nature-based climate solutions in this region? Okay. So while you think through this, we'd like you to, sort of think big on this, beyond contributing to the climate change goals. How can nature-based climate solutions deliver on broader policy goals? For example, driving regional economic development, supporting public health, and improving the quality of people's lives. Some of those interconnected issues. So again, what does long-term success look like for nature-based climate solutions in this region? Okay. Does anyone want to offer a verbal response since we're having some technical issues with our tool? *9 if you'd like to raise your hand, and I can ask you to unmute yourself.
Cece, this is Kyle with technical support. I just wanted to note that all responses are being recorded. We just haven't received any yet. So it's all working okay, and we're just waiting for our first comment to come in.
Okay, thank you so much, Kyle, for that report. So even as you are texting in your responses, we are capturing them, even though the tool is not working. But this is your opportunity to provide a verbal comment if you wish. Okay, so so now that you have some of these questions and you're thinking about them, I'm going to ask the last question so that you can have that also on your roster to think about. What does success look like for 30 by 30? So if you think, here we go. What does success look like for 30 by 30? Here we go. Access to open space, availability of public transportation. So if you're thinking ahead to 2030, what do you hope has happened in your region? Yeah, this is a thought-provoking question because it's asking you to think into the future. Cooler summers. I think last summer you all got up to 110 or something like that. Yeah, more rain. So far we have access to open spaces, availability of public transportation, cooler summers, more rain, sufficient conservation, which requires adequate funding. That's important. we have a good mix of responses here around even public transportation, cooler climates in the summer, rain, sufficient conservation tied to adequate funding. Would anybody like to offer a verbal response? Okay. I think we can maybe backtrack and see if the tool is working so that we can see, and I could synthesize some of our responses for the other. Question 7, again, I hope it works. What does success look like for climate smart land management in this region? Okay.
CC, we're going to take one moment to stop share and get the tool reset so it displays results.
Okay, thank you, tech support. So while we wait for our technical issues to be troubleshooted, this is another opportunity if you'd like to offer a verbal response. *9 to raise your hand. Or we could just take a quick breather. Aren't virtual meetings fun? Okay, are we? So we're taking the tool offline now for our phone-only participants. Oh, we have a raised hand, I think. Can our tech support person in the accommodations room figure out why? It looks like there's a raised hand, but I can't ask to unmute. Oh, here we go. We're back online. So apologies, we've missed some of the earlier responses. Okay, caller 0492, that number, would you like to offer a verbal response to this question?
Yeah, hi, my name's Nikki, and I guess I'm thinking, well, it's more of a question, generally. Is that okay?
We can capture your question. We're just taking feedback today, so we can take your question, of course.
Okay.
Is it a
Well, I guess
clarified
I'm just, yeah, kind of, well, because I'm wondering how we know what we've already conserved, like what our baseline is. Like, is conducting a baseline kind of inventory a part of what's happening in this process?
Yeah. And can you state your name, please?
Nikki.
Nikki, thank you for your question. We're going to capture your question, and then we'll provide an answer. But we're not today. We're not doing a discussion. So oh, you're back on mute. So we hope that's okay. We'll capture your question as part of the feedback, and we'll be able to address some of the questions once we have a summary out. Thank you again for raising your hand. And our tech support, can we, yeah, thank you. So back to our question, and we have some responses that I could see here. Thank you. Permaculture frameworks. Oh. Can we go back to the last, yes, question 7. Okay, thank you. Oh, we're scrolling, thank you. So we have limited some responses to the question, What does success look like for climate smart lands management in this region? We have limited funding and slow distribution of funds to get conservation projects done. Another one on funding. Good air and water quality. Improved and continued access to ecosystem services, especially the critical ones of food, air, and water. Shortage of public-private partnerships. I think that's not directly in response to the question, but saying that we need more to make it successful. Permaculture frameworks, and just an answer about success. Okay. Any other responses to questions about what does success look like for climate smart land management in this region? I think you had some time to think about it, so maybe we go back now to question 6 and see what responses we've received since. Here we go. Please describe the greatest challenges to conserving lands and/or coastal waters, implementing nature-based solutions to climate change, or increasing equitable access to nature and its benefits. So a response is coming to a common consensus on priorities. Another is balance with housing and current urban infrastructure needs, such as cars. Can we scroll down, please? Yes, thank you. Working with private landowners to gain their support of land and waters conservation. So here's one on private landowners. Reining in corporate agricultural interests is another response. Can we scroll down, please? Balancing with affordable housing priorities. Okay. So a few around housing and urban infrastructure. And I think coming to a common consensus of priorities, so more on policy level, and one on private landowners to gain their support. Would anybody like to offer a verbal response to this question regarding greatest challenges to our priorities? Okay. Would anybody like to offer a verbal response at this point? Okay. So I think we've come to, Jen, we've come to our last question, unless anybody else has any more responses. I think we can thank you all for sharing your ideas and experiences. Oh, wait, here we go. Oh, we went through these responses already. So our screen is showing what does success look like for 30 by 30, and we talked through these already. We have an additional one, endangered species recovered. Thank you for pulling that up. Okay. So I think we could check in once again, and then we could probably end our session and get some closing remarks from Jen Norris here. So I just wanted to thank you all again for sharing your ideas and experiences during today's meeting. We hope you found it engaging. It's been this workshop, as you know, has been recorded and will be available online. at californianature.ca.gov. We will post meeting summaries with non-attributable comments captured during these meetings. You can always provide feedback on today's experience by completing a post-workshop evaluation that will be emailed to you. We invite you to stay connected with us by visiting californianature.ca.gov. There you can provide additional written comments through this questionnaire that we've been talking about and sign up to attend one of our future events. With that, I want to hand it over to see if Jen would like to offer some closing remarks.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I recognize it's a challenging environment to have a conversation. I hope we can see each other in person sometime soon. Nikki, I want to let you know that on our website, californianature.ca.gov, there is a lot more information about what we're working on, including a fairly long webinar from January that talks about some of the questions you raised. So I encourage you to check that out. Hopefully that will help set the stage for what we're trying to get done. But I want to thank everybody that's come. Thank you, Cece, and thank you all the interpreters. We really appreciate your participation in this. It makes a big difference. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jen.
Cece, confirm, this is the end of the workshop, right? We're not going back to the main room. So
correct. I wasn't clear on that, but we're ending in our main room, and the other breakout rooms will be ending in theirs.
So thank you, everyone. If you're waiting for us to come back together, we're not. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.